Hey there, amazing souls, and welcome to today's message. Today I'm doing a really quick one that's just come off the back of an amazing morning that I've had, deepening into a book that I'm coming full circle on. Actually, three books that I'm coming full circle on at the moment, simultaneously in some kind of weird way. But the major one for me is called The Artist Way by Julia Cameron. And it's a book that I picked up a few years ago, and I went through the processes and the movements of, and it was really valuable. But something was calling me to actually come back full circle and dive into it. So if you haven't heard of this book, basically there's a couple of it's actually to help unlock your creativity. And to know that we're all artists in some way, right? You don't have to be a painter, you don't have to be a singer, you don't have to be, some sort of artist in that kind of regard, but we all have, this place of creativity that when we can tap into and unlock it, we set ourselves free to be much more of who we actually are, all right? And so it's kind of like thinking about your own, inner child, or your own spontaneity, or your own creative flow in whatever regard that is. But this book actually gives you some processes that are really valuable in terms of just unlocking, the blocks that we gather throughout our existence and throughout our life that block our creative flow, right? That we used to have access to, maybe when we were kids, it used to flow, but it's gone. And, we've gathered all these kind of hurts and pains and blockages for our creative flow, and we don't feel safe anymore to really share of that and connect in with that. And we're going about the business of being, these boring old adults, really, right? And so anyway, part of the process with that is to do what's called morning pages, which is basically just 3 pages when you get up in the morning of just a brain dump, basically, just letting consciousness just kind of flow onto the page without any sort of expectation of what's coming out. Just like it could be just a stream of consciousness, your stream of thoughts, worries, fears, concerns, insights, just scatterbrain kind of concepts, whatever it might be. But you just put pen to paper for 3 pages and just let your consciousness flow, right? And just kind of get things moving in your own system. And I've just been doing, today was day 8 that I've been tapping back into that I've been doing that every day, and just getting a lot from it. And it's led me to also pick up the work of Elizabeth Gilbert. And I went back to a book that I read of hers like many years ago, I think when it first came out, called Big Magic. And at the time I wasn't really that connected to it, but because Elizabeth Gilbert, really commends Julia Cameron from The Artist Way and her processes in the Artist Way book, to why she even got into creative flow and created Eat, Pray, Love, which is what she's most well known for. I was like, let me check out some of Elizabeth Gilbert's work. And I went back, and I've just finished yesterday her Big Magic book, and then that unlocked me because of her friendship with Martha Beck, which is one of the best books I've ever read, which is called The Way of Integrity. It inspired me to get back into her book, which I'm just about to start tomorrow. Good evening to you, Sarah. Good to have you here. I know you're in England. I love that. But yeah, so I was just listening to an amazing interview which was between Elizabeth Gilbert and Martha Beck. So Elizabeth Gilbert was interviewing Martha Beck, and this one key thing just stood out to me so much, and I wanted to share it with you guys today and hope that you test this out for yourself today in your own life and get a deeper insight. But it's today's topic, which is the opposite. This is what Martha Beck's comment was. She said, the opposite of your most painful thought is the next step to your enlightenment. Okay, and so let me just unpack this for a moment. I'll give you her example, and I'll share with you the example that came through in my own life today, and hope that you apply this and ask yourself, you know, what is this most painful thought that I might have? And it might take some kind of soul searching to get to the real pain of a thought or a belief system that's currently limiting you in some capacity, or probably in a big capacity, right? But basically, let's unpack it. So it's a negative, painful thought, right, that you have about yourself. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm whatever, not, you know, I'm not something that I want to be, or whatever it is, right? And I'll share Martha Beck's example and my own. So you identify what's the painful thought, and then you find its opposite, right? And that is what she's saying is the next step to your enlightenment. Now, you might look at enlightenment as just a waking up experience, like to awaken to how you've been limiting yourself in some way, shape, or form, or creating your own suffering. Enlightenment can be seen as your next step to freedom, to liberation, to just understanding why you do what you do and being at choice point to make a different decision, right? Whatever that is. So however you want to interpret that, the key concept to understand is that the opposite of your most painful thought is your next step to freedom, all right? So her example in the book, in this interview, but she also shares it in her book, The Way of Integrity, is such a profound story that I don't want to try and articulate it to you too much, but basically the long and the short of it is that she was in the Mormon church, born into it, very high ranking in her family, and basically she got to a place of leaving Mormonism and then going on a year's journey of integrity where she just refused to tell a single lie, not even a white lie, nothing, no softeners, anything. And it came out that she'd been sexually abused by her father in the church and all this stuff. And then she was actually getting death threats and having to have police guard and all sorts of things to protect her from these very real threats to her life. And basically the thought that she was having, the most painful thought that she was having at that time is something bad is going to happen to me, right? She was terrified, receiving all these death threats and needing all this police guard. And that was the most painful thought that was coming through for her, right? So something bad's going to happen to me, right? Consider just walking around thinking that all the time, right? In your daily life. And she was into the work of Byron Katie, another one of my favorite teachers, right? And if you haven't heard of Byron Katie, definitely go Google her, look up thework.com. And basically Byron Katie's work is to just do the turnarounds on these sorts of thoughts that limit us in our own system. And so she did this work. And so Martha Beck said, okay, what's the opposite to this most painful thought, right? The thought being something bad is going to happen to me. And what came through for her that revolutionized her next steps was the next step to her enlightenment. The turnaround was, I'm going to happen to something bad, right? And so this new, just flipping the script, just creating the opposite pathway in her system. You know, instead of something bad's going to happen to me, right? Like I'm the victim to this circumstance and it's terrifying. She stood into her power with this recognition of the opposite of her most painful thought, right? Which was, I'm going to happen to something bad. This situation is bad and I'm going to happen to it, right? I'm going to be the transformation in this circumstance. I'm going to be the creator of my own life, right? And she stood in her power and she made these shifts. And that was the next step towards her enlightenment. All right, so just that flip, being able to identify your most painful thought, right? Being clear about what that is, and then finding its opposite and applying how that can be true and how much more freeing and enlivening that is to your soul, right? So for me this morning, I decided to, after my morning pages, stream of consciousness flow, I'm like, I'm going to test this out. What is my current, most painful thought? And it took me a while, right? Because I just started writing potential painful thoughts that were coming up for me, and none of them were that juicy. They were yeah, all right. And I could just kind of do the flip arounds. And I had to go, and you might have to do this for yourself. I had to go through several kind of layers of potential thoughts to actually get to what's my most painful thought. And you might need to even reflect into your childhood, what it might have come from, and all this sort of stuff. So go through the timeline of your history and identify what's the most painful thought underlying maybe all these other little painful thoughts, right? And actually I got to the bottom today, and what I discovered, the most emotionally impactful, painful thought that I got to surprised me. And it was that, let me see. Yeah, I am an embarrassment to others. That's what it got to. And I was like, whoa, like I'm an embarrassment to others. And I just saw flashes of like, you know, different family members who like I might disappoint or embarrass. And I could see the timeline of my history and being a little girl and like, you know, noticing like, oh, that's the last thing I want to do is embarrass my family in some way and whatever. And I could see like all this stuff, and I was like, yeah, that's the one. Let's work with that, right? Let's go there, because that feels like something still stuck in the pit of my stomach. Like I don't want to be an embarrassment to others, right? Maybe you can relate to that, maybe you can't. I was quite shocked that that came through at the time, right? And this is why it's so powerful to do this work and empty out and get to the depths of what's really driving a lot of your behavior. And when I got to that place and I did the turnaround, I was like, instead of I'm an embarrassment to others, I turned it into I'm proud of myself. And like in that moment, like this morning, it just all just landed for me, you know. It's like, oh, it's so interesting that, you know, my most painful thought leads me to my highest potential in life, right? And the reason why I do every single piece of my work that I do with others is to help them identify and become the person they're authentically inspired and proud to be. And I realize what a gift it is that for whatever circumstances and reasons, I generated this most painful, fearful thought of I don't want to embarrass my family. I don't want to embarrass others. I don't want to be an embarrassment to others. And what took its place was I want to be proud of myself, right? It used to be back in that time, how do I make others proud of me? How do I be what others want from me? How do I become what others will love, right? And throughout my journey, you know, I can see how it's all been a pathway to get me to the opposite of not wanting to be an embarrassment to others, but instead, how can I be proud of who I am? And then I started just listing out all the ways, all the actions that I take and can take that make me so proud of myself, right? And take me away from that living from the place of don't want to be an embarrassment to others, because I know what that path is, and it's not a free one, you know. It's one that's very entrapping, that's very engulfing, that takes you away from your center and yourself. And so it just all made sense to me, and I just wanted to share that with you guys today. And I want to invite you to try this on in your own life, and I'd love to hear from you about your turnaround. So take a journal out and write down and identify, and like it might take you a little while to get there, like it did me this morning, but like start writing down, what is my most painful thought, right? I know Elizabeth Gilbert shared hers in the interview that I'm referring to yesterday, and she said that hers was that I'm a bad person. That's her most painful thought. I'm a bad person, right? And then, you know, when you can identify the most emotionally charged, triggering, like gut-wrenching kind of painful thought that you might have about yourself, go on the journey of finding what's its opposite, right? And you'll know you've reached it when there's an opening in your system that's like, it's like the best feeling in the world. It's like that waking up feeling, like that little aha moment of freedom, of like recognizing how trapped you've been and just opening the door that wasn't even locked, right? Like you just didn't realize you were in the cage in the prison. And so go on that journey. I'd love to hear from you about what you uncover with that, because it's so powerful, right? And if you're not familiar with Byron Katie's work, go check out thework.com. If you're not familiar with the book, The Way of Integrity, I'm just about to start it for the second time tomorrow by Martha Beck. I highly recommend it. And definitely, if you've never heard of Julia Cameron's The Artist Way, then dive in and give yourself the gift of actionable tools and openings. You know, the tasks and the processes that she gives are so powerful for just unlocking and unleashing your soul, right? Your own sense of creativity. You don't have to be an artist to get massive value from this book. And the truth is, we're all artists in some way, right? It's just not in the traditional sense for all of us. And so I hope you give it a go, test it out. And definitely for those of us who feel trapped, who feel limited, who aren't feeling as though we're living a life true to ourselves, it's a great place to go to, The Artist Way. Give yourself that gift. And I'd love to hear from you on your journey as well. So that is my message. I do have to run off, but before I do, I always love connecting in and just saying hi to you guys. So do drop me comments, do say hi, do share your words of wisdom, your experiences, and if you're brave enough and bold enough and courageous enough and want to take responsibility enough in your own system to break through your limitations, and I'd love to hear your answers to following through on what's the identification of your most painful thought and what is its opposite, and how can that open you to your next step on the journey of waking up, of enlightenment, of freedom, whatever it is. And I hope that you feel a deeper sense of being free to be all of who you are. And on that note, I should actually just mention and remind that every week we are running that free Zoom call, Free to Be Me with V sessions. I share some inspiration with you. We all connect as a community. You get to share whatever's on your heart, whatever you're going through. It's a place to bring any questions that you just need some perspective shift or support or encouragement on, and to unleash yourself from your own self-imposed prison of limitation and break through and break free and start living a life true to yourself. All right, so quick hello to Sarah and Joshy and Lucy and Eric. So good to see you guys. Hope this message serves you. If you're just tuning in, make sure you catch the recording. Love to hear from you. And as always, my reminder is to go out there and live fully, to love deeply, and to contribute yourself. Be free to be who you are, right? Give your gifts, share your gifts, unlock your creativity, all that good stuff. That's what life is about. And I'd love to support you on it if you want to come and join us in the Free to Be Me sessions happening every week. Monday Aussie time, might be Sunday for you guys, depending where you are in the world. But so much love coming to each and every one of you guys, and I can't wait to see you again soon. Much love. Mwah.